Hi, this is Mary Greendale, and it's campaign season. Candidates are starting to be interviewed, and I want you to understand that when I interview these candidates, I am asking each candidate for an office the same questions. They get the questions in advance, they can prepare, and then we go through them. I have found this to be a good way to get a sense of how people respond to the questions in substance, and also how they differ between one candidate to another. The other thing, for candidates that are not opposed, I do not do interviews, but if they are brand new to town government, I do. And I do so because I believe that people have the right to know who's running their town government. And so we meet them, we talk to them, and we ask them a series of questions that's appropriate for their town office. So you will be able to watch these interviews at your leisure, and keep an eye out for them, and let's get going. Hi, this is Mary Greendale, and here we are at Just Thinking and one more interview. Today's interview is Iris Sobchak, and Iris is running for the Finance Committee. She is unopposed, and there is one remaining vacancy that has no candidate at all. So that's just sort of a heads up. So good afternoon, Iris. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mary. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So welcome to Just Thinking.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Holliston, and that kind of thing, your background.
Okay. Well, I have a really interesting and complicated history. I'm originally from Georgia. That's where I grew up until I was about 11. And then my family moved overseas. My father was a Army lawyer, and I lived in Saudi Arabia, in Switzerland, in Germany, and Mexico, and that was where I lived in my youth. And then I joined the Army, went to West Point, was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Logistics Corps of the Army in 1992. And I worked in logistics for about 10 years. I was a platoon leader, company commander, support operations officer in the 24th Infantry Division and in the 101st Airborne Division. And I am airborne and air assault and rigor qualified. And I was the first female commander of the 101st Airborne Rigger Company. Those are the people who pack the parachutes. So I have a lot of experience in logistics and budgets and, operations and planning, those types of things, not just in war, in humanitarian assistance and regular peacetime activities. I actually was about halfway through towards a master's in logistics before the Army nominated me to go back to West Point and teach history. So I went to Penn State and did a master's in history and followed that on with a teaching assignment at West Point. I taught world history, Latin American history, and history of religion. Those are my fields. After that, I changed over to civil affairs branch, which is working with non-government organizations, intergovernment organizations, and the local population during peacetime and wartime. It's centered at Fort Bragg. That's where all the training, it's co-located with special operations. So I went through all of that training, and then I went to South Korea for my first assignment as a civil affairs officer, where I was the deputy civil affairs officer for the whole 8th Army. And my biggest job there was to be in charge of the Good Neighbor program for the whole 8th Army, for the whole peninsula. So a big part of that was kind of going around to all of the units, Army units in Korea, and looking at their budgets and their operations for the Good Neighbor program. And those primarily included adopt a school and adopt an orphanage. And that's where the military would take, collected units would take collected donations, and then sometimes some unit property if they had excess property, and they would donate it to orphanages and schools. And actually, we did such a great job with that program that the year that I ran it, we actually won the Department of Defense award for Best Public Relations Program in the whole Department of Defense. I came back to the 101st Airborne, served in Iraq as a civil affairs officer, managed a budget of reconstruction because civil affairs, that's kind of what we do. We work with locals and the Corps of Engineers to do reconstruction. My budget for all of East Baghdad in 2005, 2006 was $100 million. And we executed programs from building all the sewer lines and water lines and electrical in Sadr City to the biggest gas station in Sadr City. And it was really a learning experience for me to work with local Iraqis on large construction projects with these large budgets, because there were a lot of records that were missing, a lot of records that had been destroyed, and every local sheik wanted a part of the money. There was so much money, it was causing a lot of inflation. I did learn a lot about negotiating and budgeting from a civilian works process in that job. Came back and worked as the logistics officer for the entire sustainment brigade of the 101st Airborne for a year. And our budget was, gosh, I don't remember, but it was huge, because basically that's the unit that's providing all the logistical support to all of the operating infantry, field artillery units in the 101st Airborne. And I was the logistics officer for that unit. Followed that up with 4 years at the Pentagon, where I was the sort of project manager for the Army's personal recovery, survival, evasion, and resistance, and escape program. I had to work closely with the Air Force and special operations in that program, because that's where most of the training and the money is. And, in that job, I learned a lot about navigating complex bureaucracies with new programs. And we executed some new programs that saved the Army a lot of money. And they were so great that about 2 years after I left that job, the Air Force and the Navy and even the FBI and Homeland Security adopted our profile program, which was used to, if someone were to go missing, this program has all the information in it that you would need to identify somebody if they were being held captive, or if you found a body. So I'm pretty proud of that. And it was all for about $30,000, which is a real bargain in Army funds for a program that big. And then after that, my husband was assigned as the commander of the base at Natick, and they had to find me a job. So I became the Inspector General of the Massachusetts Guard for the Air Force and the Army. And basically, I had an office of about 7 people at any time, and we did all of the inspections, all of the accounting inspections. We did investigations to keep the Guard kind of on the straight and narrow in terms of conforming to the broader national, federal military, active duty military rules. So that's how we got to Natick. We were looking for a good school district for our children. we have 4 children. 2 are now, college age. 2 are in the Holliston schools. We selected Holliston because it was basically your perfect Norman Rockwell town. And I love the garden club because I'm really into gardening, and I just loved all the beautiful flowers and everything with regard of kind of how it looked. But we also were really attracted by the French program because I wanted my children to have a second language and believe strongly that you need to start early. So we were drawn by the French immersion program and just the beauty of the town. I retired in 2014 as a lieutenant colonel. I could have stayed on to try and go for colonel, but the next assignment was going to be in Turkey as the NATO civil military operations liaison to Turkey. It was a dream job, but they weren't allowing people to bring dependents. And I just thought 2 years away from my children was too much. They were very young and still needed me. So I retired in 2014, and I did some consulting. I did some consulting in Abu Dhabi for 2 months. And then I was supposed to go to Africa and Ebola hit. So those contracts were canceled, and I took it as a sign that I should look for a regular job and stop seeking all this adventure. So I ended up being picked to become a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. And it was a great honor. It was a complex field. There's a lot of people I was competing against. I am older. I know they like to hire younger people for that position. And I ended up getting my Series 7 in 66. I worked in that job for 3 years. And then the commute to Boston just started killing me. And I developed really bad allergies and wasn't seeing my kids or family at all. So kind of like the job was, I might as well be overseas, right? If I'm going to work like that. So I left that job to work for a women's leadership consulting company. And of course, all that business kind of dried up in February. So decided to leave in February. And I'm actually going to go back for my PhD, second master's and a PhD starting in the fall. So that's my background. That's how I got to Holliston. And we love it so much. We've been here 10 years now, and this is our forever home. We're going to stay here forever.
That's great. That's wonderful. That is quite an adventure-filled, adventure-packed story. And you'd probably be a great one to sit down if somebody wanted to do background for a novel.
My friends have told me that because, you have crazy stories along the way, right? I've got a lot of crazy stories and some really funny ones. So I probably should record some of them. I know my family's probably sick of hearing some of them.
Though in all seriousness, and speaking from an age that's older than yours, I can say if you can record those, someday they're really, really, really going to appreciate it. Seriously, because that's kind of what I did. Some of that with one of my uncles, and we go back to it just to listen to his voice and to hear stuff that we knew, but still, it's kind of neat. Anyway, let's move on. So as far as the finance committee here, why did you decide the finance committee? I can sort of pick up on the thread given how many different places you've been that had budget responsibilities and finance responsibilities. Was there anything specific that you were interested in?
So actually, I wasn't really thinking about it because we're renovating our kitchen, and I'm thinking about starting school in the fall and kids stuff. And a friend of mine asked me if I would be interested. And I thought about it, and Holliston's just been so good to us, and we love this town. So I thought, I should contribute and do something. That's why I decided to do it. Someone asked me if I would consider it. They knew I had a lot of finance background, and I thought that I could make a difference.
Great. Well, obviously, public sector finance is a good thing too, because you understand, that the money process. You may not know specific to Holliston, but you understand that everything comes with little footnotes. every,
Right. And there's always, some particular law
yeah,
or practice that you don't know when you, I understand that there's going to be a lot that I don't know kind of going into this, but I'm a quick learner because I've done a lot of different jobs over the years. Understand basic accounting and, the difference between obligated and committed funds. And I will say that I'm not the kind of person that believes in revolutionary change. If I were to see something that I thought that could be fixed, I would not be a proponent of sort of radical change. I like to see things, change slowly over time. I think it gives people time to consider any kind of change, or that's just my basic philosophy on change, is that slower is better. And that way, that if you're making a mistake and you realize it at some point, you can go back and correct it with baby steps instead of leaping over, a cliff.
right, understood. So is there anything, I know it would be early in your experience, but what kind of goal that you might have for the committee, for your role in the committee, a program, a process, or whatever, or is it too soon to know?
Well, in terms of processes, it's really too soon for me to make a judgment on that or any kind of goals, because I like to see a process happen in real time before I make any kind of judgment on the process. But I do believe in transparency and fairness, and I believe in hearing all sides out before making a decision. I would never go into any kind of decision already deciding what I was going to, to do. But I think one of the things I would really like to see in this town, I worked in water purification as a platoon leader for 2 years, and I know a lot about water quality. And I would really like to see if we could do improvements on the town's water. And I know it's very expensive. And I know that the environment that we're in, meaning groundwater levels, previous contaminants in the groundwater might preclude any kind of change. But that's something I would really like to look into. We need to modernize our water supply and not be caught just meeting minimum, federal standards, because the minimum federal standards, I can tell you, having worked in the water business, the minimum federal standards are still not healthy for most human beings. And those who are immune compromised, it's technically bad. And we need to make sure that people who can't afford bottled water have access to clean and safe water.
I agree. There are a lot of things, and you'll learn all of this. I mean, there are a lot of things right now moving forward about the water system and the water development, projects, and you can find all of that on the website. So, do that.
Okay.
But it's good to know that in fact you have that kind of background, because I agree. I think Holliston needs that. You should also know that the town administrator has a very strong water background also. So,
oh, great.
Town administrator, you people can have a great time talking water.
I find people who have water backgrounds are just utterly fascinated with the reverse osmosis portable units that we used overseas, like in Iraq and Saudi, because of the high saltwater content, or say in Latin America where there's a lot of mud in the water. And so, yeah, I'm sure we'll have some good discussions on that.
You will. I'm sure you will. Is there anything that you want to add or say about this adventure? This is not anywhere near like going to Iraq, I suppose, but it's an adventure.
Well, I just that I take things seriously, and I represent, all, regardless of anyone's opinion of me. I don't take anything personally, and any decision that I would make would be what would be best, what I believe best for the town and the majority of the town's people. I see myself as a as a fair-minded advocate for the people. I truly have no political aims or long-term political goals. I just want to, help my town, basically.
All right, sounds great. Well, if you have nothing else, then I think we can call this a wrap. I'm thoroughly fascinated by your background, so I think I'm going to have you come on and just let's talk about your adventures, because they sound like it'd be a lot more fun than talking about local government. But that's
Thanks, Mary. I'd love to. I love to talk, and I love people, and I love to talk to people. So
yeah, no, I would
that
love
would
to.
be great.
All right. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Thank you. And folks, once again, Iris Sobchak is on the ballot. She is an unopposed candidate for one of 2 vacancies for the Finance Committee. One more reminder, May 25th is the election. It will be at the high school in the field house as always. And we'll see you then, I hope. And town meeting is Monday night if this is too late. This might be after town meeting by the time it gets on the air and you get to see it. So at any rate.
Okay.
Okay. So thanks
All
very
right.
much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mary. Have a good day. Bye-bye.